we go. Mike from around the world. Mike, is this you from around the world?
It is, Pastor Paul. I was kind of hesitant. I was wondering, did I dial the right number?
You got it.
I did.
You did it. You did it. How you doing?
Well, I'm good to go. Good to go so far. How about yourself?
I'm doing great, Mike. I'm doing great, and great to have you on with us again here tonight. Appreciate you coming on to be with us so much.
Yeah, it's good. Every time we come on, something has blown up or gone wrong. That's weird, and it's quite strange.
It is very strange. Couple things, Mike. You said we'd be talking about a volcano. We are. The Philippines, the mountain Nayon, erupted 6 times. Boom, 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 throwing ash high into the stratosphere. And I don't even know if that's the volcano you were thinking was going to go off. So can you tell us a little bit about this?
Well, the activity itself, volcanic activity itself, is rising. There have actually been a couple, to be honest with you.
Okay.
And now the attention is also being directed towards California. In case people didn't know, there's an expectancy as of the last 4 days, 4 or 5 days, of some type of eruption in California. Now, I think they put out some sort of a soft statement to the public to increase awareness of volcanism in California, but they are expectant of a few things. They're following, they're trending, they're keeping pace, they're having no choice, but they hate to print things like that. But there should be a warning or some type of advisement to people in California, in the scientific community, and in the public, as far as an expectancy of a volcano about to erupt.
A volcano in California? Do we know which? I mean, do we know which one?
Well, that entire line is active. There's such a pressure buildup inside of the Earth right now. It is just incredible. And what we see externally, as far as the weather phenomenon, things of that nature, that's more of an echo compared to what's happening on the inside of the Earth. It's very difficult to see anything on the inside of the Earth, and most of it's theorized, but there's a lot of pressure, a lot of energy being absorbed by the Earth.
Is tectonic plates moving, Mike? Some of the people want to know in the chat room.
They are severely smashed. They have special sensors that they will put in fault lines to track movements, correct? They can also measure pressure, one plate against the other. They do an estimation, but the pressure is incredibly enormous to a breaking point. We've not had enough small earthquakes to alleviate the pressure on the plates, and so this is going to yield a pretty large one. These 7.0 magnitude earthquakes are simply not enough to alleviate that pressure, because the energy absorption of the Earth is so massive that there's no way a 7.0 is going to alleviate that. So what people could expect is a slew of smaller eruptions that are quite damaging.
Yeah, it's a great point you're bringing up, because I've been noticing over the last, let's say, 90 days that Alaska's had a lot of smaller earthquakes. It's been very active up there. But California's been kind of quiet. Quiet. Just a couple small ones there, but it's been kind of quiet. So you're saying that pressure is really heavily building. And I don't know if that's Northern California or is there a volcano down in the San Andreas fault line at all?
Well, there are, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, over 13 volcanoes lining California. I know that most people only know about Shasta and things like that, Washington State up in those areas going down, and that the other half of the people are fixated on Yellowstone. But the problem is, there are, through underground surveys, there are so many different types of volcanoes. Remember, volcanoes form, right? But things erupt, and then all of a sudden you have the leftover remnants, which is called, those are the volcanoes that we see, these big, towering mountains that we see, are remnants of volcanoes that formed, that came uplifted out of the ground. So you have one of those situations. For example, Yellowstone is a baby in the USA.
Yeah.
The Yellowstone caldera is quite small, which is why they don't mind talking about Yellowstone, which is in fact a model of some of the larger calderas that lie underneath the United States. Also, Italy has an enormous caldera underneath it. It is massive. And of course, there's some more around the world, but the USA has quite a very large one underneath. It spans from New York through Pennsylvania all the way to West Virginia, sitting under some very old mountains. So you have one there, but California's lined with them, out in the ocean and on land, all the way back into that Nevada, Arizona, Oregon, Idaho line. So it's a pretty, and they're now warning that there should be articles out there right now speaking about an expectancy of volcanic activity in California.
It's not out there, Mike. No. We're not hearing that. We're not hearing that. We're hearing about the cyclone, the bomb cyclone, which we can mention that for a second. We'll come back to California. This is a big story you're breaking on us. But this bomb cyclone, or what Mr. BBB 333 calls a land hurricane, you know, you have said over the last 5 years that the waves of energy would start pushing down the jet stream, would start pushing it down onto the surface and create these massive straight line winds. Well, yesterday, 100-mile-an-hour winds in Logan, New Mexico, blows a train right off, derails it off the tracks, blows semi-trucks off the sides of the road and tips them over. We have this bomb blizzard in Colorado Springs of a biblical proportion with 1,000 cars stranded in snow. The wind 97 miles an hour. Could you imagine being in that? Tornadoes today in Michigan, Indiana, Kentucky. Just it goes on and on. So is this bomb cyclone? Is this what you're talking about? Straight line winds?
Yeah, that's a good example of the high and low pressure system. I believe that the high, it's even right now sitting near Wyoming, Colorado, Nebraska, Kansas, all those places. And then you have a low pressure system over near Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, Michigan, those places. In between there, you have isobars. But what happened in this case is that you had an actual chunk of the atmosphere that dipped, right? Something that I have seen over and over and over again. Anytime I look at the data, the same conclusion is very apparent. And these dips in the atmosphere, which causes the millibars, the pressure of the atmosphere to drop very fast, causes not only the winds between the high and low pressure systems, but it also compacts the counterclockwise winds of a low pressure system extraordinarily. Now, those were cold temperatures, correct?
Yes.
Cold temperatures.
Yes.
Well, here's what happens. Here's what, because of the time of the year, let's call this a very weak system. Because when the air warms, as the warmer temperatures begin to take over, it will add 10 times more strength to these storms. And this is also a good example of the last time I was on when I said we're going to have storms that cover the entire United States. Yeah. It's a good example that, yes, it's possible. It did, in fact, happen. But if we can get through the remaining, weeks here without any further incidences, during the summertime when the heat comes around, that's when we're going to have problems. Because in the winter, the energy is not as abundant in the atmosphere compared to in the summertime, where you have a lot of warm air, warm waters driving these storms. So imagine this in the summertime, where you have hot air from the Gulf driving these storms. It would have been at least 10 times more magnitude than what it is. Now, our infrastructure cannot take those type of winds. And when when you look at these things and you look at the trending, you see the same picture all the time, that as the days go forward, this is going to be the norm. 97-mile-an-hour winds going up to 150-mile-an-hour winds.
No!
We've seen the 150, but 5-6 years ago when we began to speak, they began to creep up. You would have storms where they would produce, they called them derechos, and those were producing pretty high winds, but they weren't sustained. Now you have this storm, which was producing sustained winds. Yeah. Because I remember one time you said, are those going to be gust or sustained? And I said 150 mile an hour sustained.
Yes, you did.
Right.
Yes, you did. 150 mile an hour sustained winds which is blowing my mind because that's worse than a hurricane. Because a hurricane, yeah, it could be 150, 160 mile an hour winds, but it's going to come and go in I don't know, 12 hours or something. You're going to get through the eye. But you're talking about 150 mile an hour straight line winds sustained for 72 hours. Some outrageous event that we can't handle. I mean, let's go back to California because let me just say this, folks. There's 3,400 of you live with us on YouTube right now. If everybody would push thumbs up right now, you would drive the algorithms crazy on YouTube and force our live broadcast to just shoot to the top. Probably the most watched live broadcast going on right now, pretty well in the world, at least in one of the top 10 shows going on right now. So if you hit that button, thumbs up, it will drive the algorithms up, and more people will say, hey, what's going on here? And they will show, and they need to be here. There's some critical information. Mike, let's go back to California because I think you're breaking some news here that is nowhere out there. You're saying there should be information about volcanic eruptions in California. Talk to us.
Yeah, because the USGS has been compiling data for a while now, and all the data indicates the exact same thing. Of course, everybody has heard that term, we're overdue for Yellowstone to erupt, but based on what? And what they're doing is they're going back into the geological record, seeing previous eruptions, and then they get the intervals in between there. So they come up with a determination that we're overdue. Well, the California situation is a bit different. It's not based on intervals. This is based on actual data. Because they're so close to the oceans, you can also penetrate the sea on the ground with certain pieces of equipment, and you can look underneath that shelf, and you can actually see, you can detect the heat underneath the ocean at that ocean floor. And so with the new feedback that's coming in, the new pressures that are coming in, it's just enormous pressure. It's going to have to relieve itself. It's going to have to relieve itself. It's like a pressure cooker, right? But let's say instead of that little knob that goes on the top that dances around, just imagine somebody duct tape that down where no pressure can escape. Well, it's going to continue to build. And it's going to build up enough pressure until that steel breaks, in this case, until it cracks through the ground. Well, we had that. You remember the methane leak?
Yes, I remember that. In
conjunction with that methane leak, come to find out that there was an emergency because they had to seal off various places of that area. And even, 120 miles away from that area, there was another methane leak. So we know it was not coming from any stored containers. Right. This was coming from the ground because there's gases trapped underneath California. Well, to make a long story short, if you look at where the fires are, and if you begin to look at where these fires were started and where they would really take off at, where they were extremely hot, if you can get some of the heat measurements of it, you're going to see a correlation between the gases that are emitting from the ground and the heat of this fire. Now, what didn't make sense is that certain parts of the fire had no foliage to actually burn to get that hot, but they did anyway, which implies that gases were seeping from the ground, helping to increase the temperature of the fire. In this case, this is becoming a problem in several areas. The Earth is actually beginning to emit these gases, these toxins, and it's very difficult to find out which ones are which and what's going to take over what. But this was also a discussion that we had a long time ago about these gases seeping out of the ground. So what we have here is we have a highly active Earth on the inside geologically, and we have a magma problem. We have a magma issue, and it's being fed by all this radiation, these charged particles coming in, captured by our magnetosphere. It's pulling it down inside of the Earth, and it's going inside the Earth, heating everything up. So you can think of it as somebody's turning the temperature up in the Earth. And of course, we know biblically at the end, heat is going to be a real problem. Yeah. The Earth will eventually just burn itself. Everything will be burned up. But, Mike, we're seeing the onset of that now.
Yes, we are. And Mike, as you're talking here about this pressure building, real quick, there was an article just came out, Fox News, evidence for the mysterious planet X. Now they're calling it planet number 9, but right in the article, about three stanzas down, it says planet number 9, and then it puts parentheses, also known as planet X. So they're telling us that the energy waves, the gravitational pull from planet number 9, or also known as planet X, is affecting the entire solar system, not just the Earth, but all the planets, including the sun. And we're seeing this cosmic rays. So as you say, those are charged particles. Those create the stratosphere, the ionosphere, make them heavy. That's pushing this straight line winds down. And it's also, Mike, am I right? It's putting pressure on the tectonic plates. So are we, when you say we're going to have a volcano eruption in California, I mean, people are going to be freaking out, but I guess it's time to sound the alarm. Is that what, because that Jesus said there's going to be great signs and fearful sights in the heavens, but it also says there's going to be earthquakes in diverse places. Is something getting ready to happen?
Pastor Paul, it's a shock they don't have those articles out there, but I suspect they will be. There's other people have gotten this data. When other people get a hold of the data, right, they have no choice but to print. So then it's going to be a story. But with all these forces acting with the inbound radiation, which increases the particle count in the upper atmospheres, causing a greater density in those atmospheres, that causes weight. The air is heavy. You know, a cloud may be 20 tons going across your head, and it's all fluffy. It's 20 tons of stuff. So this is actually adding weight to our atmosphere. So it's causing a crushing effect, right, from the top down. But then we also have an expansive effect inside of the earth from the inside out, which is going to begin to collapse the part of the earth that we occupy. Now we're looking at some phenomena, weather phenomena, that they're going to have to come up with they're going to have a brand new list of names for some of the storms they're going to have this summer. And I suspect large outbreaks of tornadic activity. They're going to have to change how they measure hurricanes, how they measure tornadoes, how they measure quite a few things, because the magnitude of these things is actually starting to go up exponentially.
What about hail?
Mathematically speaking, exponentially. And
what about hail, Mike?
Working in tandem. And one of the questions, I guess the part that makes me so passionate about this is that I've been in too many situations where people thought things to be impossible. It really cost them quite a bit of misery because they refused to pay attention. If a person is prepped with just knowledge that these things can be, they're still functional if something happens.
Yeah.
They're level-headed.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, you know, the Bible says, Mike, you know, the Lord hasn't given us the spirit of fear, but power and love and a sound mind. But he did say also in the Old Testament, my people are destroyed for a lack of knowledge. Okay. So if we don't warn the people, what good is a watchman standing on the wall, seeing the sword coming, seeing the storm coming, seeing the apocalypse coming, and going back and saying, don't worry about it, guys, everything's fine. Matter of fact, I think we could take all the watchmen down. You know, what good is a watchman if you don't tell the people what's coming? So it's not doom and gloom. It's information. But even when you get this information, Jesus said, don't let not yourself be troubled. You know, you're going to hear of wars, rumors of wars. See that you be not troubled. All these things must come to pass. The end is not yet. So, Mike, here we go. We got the 5 waves in hailstorms. Are you seeing this summer major hailstorms to go with this?
Oh yeah, the higher the winds, the greater the size of the hail. With an updraft, right, you're going to see greater hail. And biblically, that hail that they saw biblically, it's actually going to be there. It's going to be, we're going to get close to some things this year, not next year, this year. By the trending, everything is rising exponentially. What I mean to say is what should happen in the next 10 years, according to trending, is happening within months, not years. So everything is compacting also. What scientists, what the USGS thought would happen in the next 25 years, they had to get extra funding to get more sensors because it's happening this year. It's already happened this year. They thought it was never going to happen until 25 years from now. But now they see everything is beginning to compact itself, which means these methodical events that we see, these slow-moving events, are building up, but they're spiking. You know, they're going straight, and they're not backing down. The trending suggests that there are no rests to these events.
Is there a pole?
Going to compile and get worse and worse.
Is there a pole shift coming soon, Mike? I mean, look, Jesus is coming. All right, the wrath of God is coming. We can't deny that. That we can see the signs everywhere. Is there a pole shift coming? Isaiah 24 says the earth's going to be flipped upside down. I mean, is a pole shift coming soon, Mike?
Well, Pastor, to give you a bit of a background on me, I think way outside the box. I'm not tied down. My brain can never be tied down to, just some standard theory. But I found some things ironic. So I'm going to put it this way.
Okay.
Through magnetics, with my own personal observations, it appears to me that the Earth did not rotate the way it rotates now in the past. It just didn't. It rotated the opposite direction. Now, a pole shift would likely be a little better, right?
Okay.
I say that because of this. Imagine the Earth changing its rotational direction, right? In order for the Earth to change its rotational direction, that means our solar system flipped is what it means. Not just the Earth, not only the Earth, but everything flipped, but through inertia, right? And through, well, let's just say electromagnetic forces pulling at the north and the south poles of the Earth. You're talking about everything moving out of its place here. So then that means the constellations, as people observe them now, they would significantly change. But not only do the magnetic forces in the geological record suggest that the Earth was rotating in the opposite direction, but it also indicates some other forces were lined up differently than they are now. See, you can detect magnetite is all over the place. And it just so happens that when magnetite is stuck in rock, right, it can actually orientate itself to weaker magnetic forces beyond what's close to it, in this case, to the sun. Which means our sun went out of whack a while ago, almost as though this entire solar system shifts every so often. It will flip itself upside down and everything begins to go into a chaotic mode. And then it corrects itself as though something went past our entire solar system, right? Like a big tractor trailer passing a styrofoam cup, makes it wobble a couple times, and then it reorientates itself. So you're looking at something more than just one flip, but a few flips at the same time where there's no orientation.
Okay.
And it appears through that magnetic record that something like that has happened, because if you listen to the language and the findings, it's hard to trust certain things, but they have some of the older stones they say are from Mars. They say they're from Mars. They have magnetic anomalies in them also. The exact same magnetic anomalies that Earth has in its rocks. Now, how can Mars, their magnetic geological record, match Earth's magnetic geological record? How can that be? That means both planets were flipped. Both the magnetic influences were reversed. So then everything in the solar system was reversed. And then in the Bible, when it says that the Earth will rock to and fro like a drunkard, the stars, right, are going to be totally out of order. These things begin to make sense on that larger scale.
Yeah, let's read that, Mike. Yeah, and that's exactly where I was going when I grabbed my Bible. Isaiah 24 says this, folks. It says, from the uttermost part of the earth, we've heard songs. Okay, we've heard the sounds of the apocalypse. Even glory to the righteous. So it doesn't bring fear to us. But I said, my leanness, woe unto me, for the treacherous dealers have dealt treacherously, and they've dealt very treacherously. Well, what does that mean? He says, well, fear and the pit and the snare are upon the O inhabitants of the earth. And it shall come to pass that he that fleeth from the noise of the fear shall fall into the pit, and he that cometh up out of the midst of the pit shall be taken into a snare. For the windows from on high are opened, and the foundations of the earth do shake. Then it says, the earth is utterly broken down. The earth is clean dissolved. The earth is moved exceedingly. The earth shall reel to and fro like a drunkard, as she's removed like a cottage, and the transgression thereof shall be heavy upon it. It shall fall and not rise again. So in other words, there's going to be a change in things that are now won't continue. There's going to be a catastrophic, cataclysmic, apocalyptic event. That's Isaiah chapter 24. Mike, is the 5 waves of energy, is this the reaction of a binary system? Is this Planet X, Nibiru, whatever they want to call it? Let's just go with, is that what's causing this effect on the earth?
I believe it's a binary system. I know they can call it what they want to call it. But I do believe it's a binary system, and I do believe that we will somehow come in proximity. Nothing is going to hit us, but we will come in proximity with some of the bodies that orbit this other star. Now, here's something funny. Not one soul, right, on this earth, well, many of the people on this earth have not by themselves seen anything in space except for the constellations. So we get secondhand information, all of us do. We get pictures and video, right? We can't do direct observations unless you have access to data or something like that. Only those people who control the South and the North Poles and Southern Hemisphere have access to this information. So we have been trained to believe that things operate in a specific order in the heavens, and it's become popular. But the Bible tells us something very different. Just extremely different. Now, science can't explain what God has already set in motion, but science cannot, it does not like change. It does not like change at all, and it's always going to deny change. So the problem we have here is that change is coming, and the scientists are behind. It's what's happening. Have you noticed that they're trying to they've been trying to divert our attention to all these little different happenings in the world, not the big happenings that we can obviously see, but some of the smaller happenings and discoveries. And then, but all the while, things are changing, like this storm that just hit, like the derechos that formed 2.5, 3 years ago, like some of these meteor strikes that we've been having that are killing people every single day.
What?
And more people are having the ability to report these.
Oh, wait a minute. Wait. Mike, we're not getting these reports that people are getting killed by little fireballs or meteorites every day. I mean, I get them occasionally. We hear about this. You're saying every day this is happening?
Every day that somebody is killed by some type of rock that fell out of space. This is on a daily basis. People are severely injured. Homes are lost. Cars are lost. All sorts of things are happening every single day. But as the average individual is able to record and put these videos on YouTube, which is why they just had a clampdown on YouTube, Facebook, all those social media platforms. They have a mandate. They have to conform to something. Censorship has begun, and they've also installed some of the AI security platforms to all these systems. So if you upload a video, you know that video can be altered in less than a second, and it can take seconds. Now, a computer has the ability to go through that entire video file. It can be 3 hours long to go through that file, to understand that file, to alter that file, and then post it. Now, when you view it, you're going to see your original video. When everybody else sees it, they're going to see a censored video. Parts are going to be missing out of it, this, that, the other. So we have AI systems that are actively working this way. Consequently, they have been for the last 15 years. And sometimes I read the stories that are out there, and I can't believe what people are buying. They're just actually accepting certain things don't exist. That's a trap. People should be an expert on what does not exist.
Amen.
And the second part of this preparation, basketballs like yourself, you actually believe in revelation.
I believe it.
You actually believe in prophecy.
Yeah.
Now, all these folks don't. They will read the Bible. They hear about revelation, but they will not prepare for anything in the Bible, which tells me they don't believe in it.
They don't believe.
Have a person read it, say they believe it, but they won't prepare for it. They won't talk about it. They dance around it and do everything else. So there's a huge disconnect. And this disconnect is going to be exploited by natural disasters. And people will encounter those this year, not next year, this year. And they will begin to compound And if people are caught off guard by this, one of the most tragic things I've ever seen is when a person sits down after something has happened and says, well, there must not be a God because my home was destroyed, or my daughter lost her life, or this, that, and the other. But if they're prepared for it, if they can understand what's going to happen and what the Bible is stating, and that is very real, they won't lose their faith. They will understand that God has embraced their children instead of saying they just died. No, God embraced them. He took them early, just like it, what is that in Isaiah? Sometimes he will take a person early so they won't experience the horrors to come.
Exactly.
And then, with that understanding, they won't be shaken, and they can actually help somebody else, not be a hinder to somebody
else.
So,
Mike, listen, there's over 4,000 people here tonight. This is the largest crowd we've ever had online at one singular moment. And I think this night we could even actually see 5,000 people show. And here's why. We're living in the last days. Now people are beginning to realize things are happening. And just like you said, the internet, YouTube, social media, people have now, the word is spreading. People see things happening. And even if the mainstream media doesn't report it, the people among each other beginning to see. Mike, I have to ask you, and folks, this is Mike from around the world with us, always been coming on our show now for almost 6 years, told us 6 years ago what was going to come, said he had a dream of me over by a barge, telling people you better get on, the ship's getting ready to leave. Folks, seriously, things are happening just like the Bible said. And I appreciate Mike's fervency, his expertise, his willing to break it down. And Mike, let me ask you, this thing about California, people are freaking out there, and it's and rightfully so. No fear here, folks. Mike, are we looking at? Are we looking at like San Francisco area as potentially where this volcanic eruption may be, or is it more in a northern California area, or do they know?
No, they don't know. They don't know because of the instability of that plate in the first place. If something were to go off, any type of magma event were to be released in California, there's no guarantee it's going to come through any previous lava tubes.
So there could be a new one.
Types of vents out there.
So you're saying a new volcanic opening could literally break out along the mountain lines or along the coast of California.
Absolutely. We have actually, when lava comes to the surface, it's going to encounter every hole we put in the earth, right? Therefore, it's going to be rediverted into some of the salt mines that we have dug out, wherever we have mined, wherever we have drilled, wherever there was fracking and we're taking gases out of the earth, it's going to fill those voids first. Well, they're all over the U.S. And I was trying to get a graphic together of every single place in the U.S. we have dug, just the known places, so people can see exactly where lava can flow. So we have a big problem here, because if it begins to breach that bottom layer coming up top, which it will do, we're going to have a magma issue all throughout the U.S. The question is not where can I go? The question is, can I hear from the Holy Spirit so the Holy Spirit can instruct me on where to go? Because it's no guarantee a disaster is going to strike in a certain specific spot.
Right.
And to be honest with you, even if people did get away from something that happened on the ground, they can't dodge everything that happens in the atmosphere. And even if they dodge everything that happens in the atmosphere, they cannot dodge the spiritual implications that are coming next. I don't even think people are ready for that, actually.
No.
But,
they're not ready. Mike, just like you said earlier, you said, do I believe in Revelation? Absolutely, I believe it, because I believe the whole Bible, and I see the prophecies being fulfilled all the way through the Bible. But what's happened now in these times, instead of the church grabbing hold of their Bibles and digging into Revelation and looking into Daniel and understanding the prophetic word, they're being told to not even read Revelation no more. It's as if there's a dumbing down of the body of Christ that has got to stop. And also, I think that what's been happening is there's been this deceptive cloak that's been washed over the spiritual eyes of the world, not to recognize the signs that are all around them. And we've got to open the eyes, Mike. We've got to reveal the information.
And I believe we're going to get some help too, because there's going to be a lot of demonstration. It's already beginning, but it's going to become more frequent. But it's going to come at a cost. It will come at a cost.
Mike, let me ask you a question here as well. I mean, we've noticed here. Can I ask a question? I usually don't want to get into the military side of it. I know your position in working in the government. Just I'm a little freaked out at Spain when I'll come back to the solar flares. I'll come back to the 5 waves energy. Just let me one question. In Spain, how in the world did our CIA guys pretend to be South Koreans and walk into North Korean embassy with pizza and then go in there and interrogate those guys? How in the world did they pull that off?
Well, there's a documentary, I believe it was released on the History Channel, where they show previous missions of the CIA and what they actually do. And they show the involvement of the CIA as being culprits in starting many, many things. They not only do they pose as foreign troops, but they also pose as leaders of different countries. They also have body doubles of presidents in foreign countries so they can start things between individuals, all sorts of things they do. They actually release this on the History Channel. It's a documentary. It's a very thorough, in-depth, and accurate depiction of the CIA. But this is what CIA does on a continuous basis. I believe that story popped out because of our president's, well, let's just say his dislike. Well, let's just say he's not really favoring those agencies right now. And I believe that that story came out because of that. Because you know and I know that those stories are not normally, just given out to the public. So how in the world did it get out there in the first place? That's kind of comical, but it also implies that the CIA is involved in doing other missions just like that. So I think that's one of those. You hit me, I'm going to hit you back.
I see. I got you.
In the media.
Okay, now can I ask you one question about Venezuela, and then I'll move back into space here. What's going on here? They're in day 7 of a blackout. There's rumors that, of course, Maduro's system is just the wheels are coming off, and there's sabotage going on maybe among his own people. But this is 7 days, a whole nation in darkness without food, water. It's getting really, really ugly. And there's also rumors that Maduro's even accusing the United States and Juan Guaido of doing this. Do you have any information that you could freely give?
Well, it's in this day and age, Venezuela is an example of what more. Venezuela won't be the only ones going through that type of thing. If you look around the world, like this Brexit issue, when a situation in this day and age cannot be solved diplomatically, where people agree, people are at their boiling point. Okay, so because they're at their boiling point, it seems like everybody is at their boiling point. Because of this, tempers are flaring, anger's all over the place. It's a spirit of hatred going around. I mean, it's just all over the place. And so what you have are people who are becoming mentally undone, and they're ready to go to the extreme to make their cause be known, to get their point across, to win, to do whatever they want to do. And they're spreading all over the earth. In Venezuela, that's an example of what is going to happen to other countries if they don't quickly begin to find some platform of compromise on this. Somebody's going to have to compromise something, because they're overseas in Europe and those places, they're going to be next. And you have this situation with Brexit. You know that the next step is a forceful action, which is going to begin to destabilize things, which will in fact, now what you may not know is there are too many terrorists in that province. All the terrorists need is for that government to become ripped in half, which they are right now. And they vehemently stand against one another. If it's ripped in half and the populace gets involved in a type of rebellion, all they need is an entry point to cause real damage to that.
So
country.
You're saying
that's one of my. I'm really paying attention to that.
Okay.
And praying
so
for
you're
because of the terrorists, not so much because of Brexit,
right?
But because I know what can happen when they're distracted. And right now, they're paying attention to their own politics. And they're not looking at national security implications. And they're going to leave a gate open, and it's going to be exploited. So that's a very
That is
one of those spots I'm watching very closely.
You know, that's a great analogy, and that is while they're fighting with each other over how they're going to Brexit or if they're going to Brexit or a hard Brexit, the enemy within, they've let a lot of folks in that country with these open board policies that the EU is really ruined itself with this high taxation, migration, frustration, everything. Look at France. But what you're watching closely is watch out for the terrorists rising up and try to take over, hijack that nation of the United Kingdom from within, tear it apart, rip it apart, because everybody's got their eye off the ball, fighting with each other and trying to protect their own money that's tied up in the EU. And so what a great analogy. What a great point to bring up, Mike. I think you're onto something big time here, and we're going to keep an eye on that. Let's go back to space if we can. Look, again, the waves of energy, we're feeling it. You're real concerned about California. I know you're concerned about that huge fault line out there in the North Atlantic Ocean. We've been watching earthquakes happening, seems like every 2 or 3 days out in that North Atlantic. People always ask me about New Madrid fault line since I live over here on it, and it's been 200 years. I don't know what's going on, but do you really feel now that, look, folks need to get things together, because are we going to see an acceleration of the waves of energy? You said if we could just get through this winter, and you're still saying that. Do you feel like it's going to be better in the summer, or what's coming?
I think it'll be worse in the summer because it intensifies. And so this is a good time to gauge how people are dealing with the influx of particles, health-wise, right, with biological life forms on Earth, our brains. Believe it or not, what people may not understand is this introduction of these particles will affect the way a person thinks. I'm going to give you something real quick about how people think. A person with amnesia does not remember their past, so they're not frustrated. People with dementia, they go in and out, they have no memories, so they're not frustrated. So then what a person remembers is based on neurological pathways, right? Because of the past, we become aggravated, right?
Yes.
Magnetics can alter the way you think because it can alter neurological pathways. You can create new ones. It can disassociate good memories that you have with bad emotions. Then you're confused, which will yield to violence, thus affecting your brain. So we're having these magnetic events coming now. I'm looking for one magnetic event, at least within the next 30 days. It will be a magnetic event, which means it's going to affect electronics.
What do you mean a magnetic? Whoa. What do you mean by a magnetic effect? What kind of magnetic event?
There's a theory of gravity that I never liked. It doesn't hold water. And then there is the actual case of electromagnetic forces out there. Electromagnetic force would be your magnetism, right? Okay. That electromagnetic force changes based upon charged particles.
Okay.
So it's increasing around the Earth.
Okay.
Because it's increasing around the Earth, and that those magnetic field lines are now dipping into various parts of the Earth, not just the North and South Pole, but now they're beginning to shift into places like the other day, there was a magnetic line that came right down into Arizona. And there was another one, I believe was 3 days previous, that went right down into Arkansas. So what's that all about? Because they're changing directions. Now they're hitting land masses. These things are concentrating in land masses, which means those charged particles can come straight down to the surface of the Earth.
Wow.
It's changing the balance of a great many things.
Wow.
So a magnetic event would be an overwhelming of our magnetosphere.
Mike,
extra.
Is that why the planes are falling out of the sky? I mean, what's going on with Boeing 737s? Is it really the planes, or is there something else just taking these planes down?
I believe that Boeing has a computer problem. They have a redundant computer on there that compensates that pilots don't actually have a procedure to cut off. And so the computer in the plane is for some reason, when it gets up to a certain altitude or gets in a certain proximity to, it could be magnetism, it begins to try and compensate in thin air, and the pilots are not trained well enough in a response to turn that thing off, and so they end up fighting against it.
One more question, Mike. Tomorrow we have a solar flare that's going to hit us hard. It came from a CME that wasn't a big CME, but there's a hole in this one sunspot up there on the sun, I mean, we're in a solar minimum, so we haven't seen many solar flares, but there was a hole in the sunspot up there, a small one, but that flare shot through there like and is sending a myopic force, a myopic solar wave that's going to hit the Earth tomorrow, and it's going to hit, all the energy is going to hit like in one spot. So they're saying that this could cause, if it hits a city, it could fry the power grid. If it hits a satellite, it could just crush it or just knock it off course or knock it out, and messing up maybe GPS or phone systems. What is your take on that tomorrow? If it hits the ocean, we're going to be okay, they say. What's your thoughts on this?
Well, yeah, I'm going to have to be careful with that, because the CME, it depends on what the polarity of that CME is. If the CME, if its polarity is right, the Earth can absorb it with absolutely no problem.
Okay.
Absolutely no problem. So I'm telling you that now. But if the polarity is wrong, and the Earth will somehow repel it in certain areas, that's where a problem can be had, right? So it really depends on the polarity of that CME. What side is positive, what side is negative. The Earth has no problem absorbing massive CMEs. I mean massive ones. So it's not actually the size of the CME, it's the polarity of the CME, right? So if the polarity is wrong and the Earth does not reject it, sending it out into the poles, it could in fact absorb it, and then it flies underneath. You could say underneath the magnetic shielding and is absorbed by the surface of the Earth, which could cause the grids to be fried and everything else. But they already had a mandate for military bases and lots of corporations to be self-sustained based on power. They do not want those places running off the grid. They don't. And they updated the grid. They've been doing that for the last 2 years. And they've been trying to also shield equipment from this very thing, because they know it's going to become common. They know that we have an influx of particles coming in here. Now, the sun's interaction with what's coming 2 days later, I believe that should be here about Monday or Tuesday. I'm not sure how the sun's going to react to a pulse that's coming in right now. And about Tuesday or Wednesday, it should hit the sun. The sun could actually send out a flare, and it's at solar minimum, but it could send out a sizable flare during that time. And it can happen in, that's a matter of 24 hours. So you're assuming that hits tomorrow. It really depends on the polarity. So if the polarity is correct, it's going to do nothing. That CME will do nothing. It may fry a satellite up there, but it's not going to do any other damage.
Okay, so we're going to have a solar flare hit us tomorrow. We don't know what it's going to do based on the polarity, but you're saying there's a pulse coming. There's a wave coming, the wave of energy coming. It's going to hit the sun. And we don't know Tuesday or Wednesday next week. And then when that hits the sun, we don't know what the sun will do in reaction.
Correct. I'm interested to see what it's going to do, because this is a fairly concentrated pulse of what was it? Well, I have to get into the details, but it was picked up as a specific type of particle coming in. I'm just interested to see. I don't know what it will do. I don't know what the interaction will be. One thing I will be doing is watching.
We'll be watching.
There are a lot more behind it, and that's why I'm going to be watching to see what it does.
We'll be watching.
If it's negligible, good. If it's not, at least I'll know the timing of the next pulse is coming in.
Mike, next week I can't bring you on. It's during our 4 days of glory, and the 28th I can't do it. I'm in Dallas. But can you come back on Thursday night, April 4th? Maybe we'll have some more if we're still around. Can you come back April 4th?
Sure.
10 o'clock.
I can do that.
All right.
I can do that.
We'll see you in 3 weeks. Let's see if we're still here, guys. Thank you, Mike. Appreciate it. Great job today. Keep looking up. Keep doing a great job for the body of Christ.
God bless you, Pastor Paul.
God bless you. Amen.